Good afternoon and welcome to today's program. My name is Erin Payton and I'm the Executive Director of the 19th Century Charitable Association, which is located in Oak Park, Illinois. Our mission is strengthening our community through learning, giving, and sharing our landmark building. And we're just so happy to have you all here with us today for this wonderful program. Before we get started, just a few things. One is, if something sparks a question or a comment during the program, you can go ahead and leave it in our chat or our Q&A. And if there is time at the end of the program, we will actually unmute you and you can ask the question or provide the comment. All right, let's bring on Diane Moses. Diane is our program director and she is going to go ahead and give the bio and background for today's program. Hi, Diane.
Oh, hi, good afternoon. Franklin Stevenson studied film and animation at Columbia College, Chicago. He worked on animation for commercials for several years, primarily as an animation camera assistant. He eventually moved out to California and worked as a camera assistant and camera operator for Colossal Pictures and Lucasfilm. He currently teaches film appreciation courses for Triton College's Continuing Education Department in River Grove, Illinois. Let's give Franklin Stevenson a very warm virtual welcome.
Thanks, Diane. Hello, everyone. Glad you're here. Casablanca clearly is one of my favorite movies. I have a friend who, or a number of friends who I've mentioned Casablanca to, and they felt guilty that they haven't seen Casablanca. They feel that that everyone is supposed to see it and everyone is supposed to love it. I don't agree with that. I believe that you see what you want to see and you like what you like. That said, I do think that Casablanca is absolutely a classic. And I'd like to take a look at some of the reasons, some of the things that I think make it a classic. In my courses, I don't usually do a lot of trivia, but Casablanca has a lot of trivia that is fascinating and that really contributed to making it what it ended up being. What I usually focus on in my classes is the art of cinema, the elements that make us feel about a film the way we feel about a film. For example, camera angles, lighting, editing, camera motion, the use of music, symbolism, things that are in the background on the walls. So I'm going to take a look at a little bit of that toward the end of the presentation. So with that said, we'll jump in. So in 1940, Murray Burnett and Joan Allison wrote Everybody Comes to Rick's. In this version, it was a stage play that went unproduced. In this version, Rick Blaine is an attorney, was an attorney. So in 1941, a 31-year-old Warner Brothers story editor named Irene Diamond read the manuscript for the unproduced play and saw its potential. MGM passed on buying it, but Irene convinced Warner Brothers producer Hal B. Wallace to purchase the play for $20,000. Hal B. Wallace, in my opinion, was a great producer. He produced a lot of famous films that you would recognize. Let's take a look. Let's take a look at some of them. And I won't name the titles. I'll just scroll through them. Halby Wallace began his career as a theater manager for one of Warner Brothers theaters, and he eventually became an executive at Warner Brothers and got them an Academy Award. So he literally worked his way up from the bottom. But I'm sure most of you will recognize at least some of these films. And that's the work of Halby Wallace. So Halby Wallace, after they purchased the script, the manuscript for the play, he had a few women in mind to be in the film. One, you'll recognize Ella Fitzgerald, Lena Horne, and Hazel Scott. So maybe you can kind of speculate as to what he had these women in mind to do initially. And I will give you a hint.
That was wonderful. Didn't that make you tingle all over?
So that was Hazel Scott. And at one time, she was married to Congressman Adam Clayton Powell. Excuse me. So if you haven't guessed already what Halby Wallace had in mind for, I will show you. He considered those three actresses to play the part of Sam. But it was decided in 1942 that American audiences might not be happy with the wrong idea they got about Rick and Sam's relationship. Seeing Lena Horne and Humphrey Bogart get on a train together for a long journey might raise a few eyebrows. So they went against it to Dooley Wilson's benefit. Dooley Wilson was not a piano player. He didn't play the piano. He played the drums. He was a drummer. So a couple of people were brought in to play the drums for Dooley Wilson. One was Elliot Carpenter, and another Gene Vincent Plummer. And the records don't make it clear who played what or how much, but I think they generally point to Gene Vincent Plummer doing most of the piano playing. And in some of the shots, he played the piano while Dooley Wilson pantomimed playing in front of the camera. Now, the character of Sam is a little complex because he still has a little bit of racial stereotypes of kind of being passive, a little somewhat simple, uncomplicated, uh, and deferential to Rick quite a bit. He's still a much more uh, dignified character than was usually depicted in films at that time, in Hollywood films at that time. Part of the reason is because of the Office of War Information. The purpose of the Office of War Information was to attract U.S. citizens to jobs in support of the war effort. The problem is that the war industries weren't hiring African Americans. They were reluctant to hire African Americans because of the stereotypes at the time of being intellectually inferior, lazy, unreliable, uh, anything negative. I think most of you are probably familiar with the stereotypes in the movies of the 20s and 30s into the 40s. So the Office of War Information spoke with the executives in Hollywood and asked them to stop it. They asked them to stop the stereotyping because it was harming the war effort. Some studios chose to just not have African Americans at all. And a lot of African American actors were out of work for a while because of that. What some studios did, like Warner Brothers, was improve their depictions of African Americans. So Sam's character isn't a buffoon by any means. He's a very sympathetic and I think a very important character in Casablanca. Casablanca was directed by Michael Curtiz. Michael Curtiz, I think, is one of the major reasons Casablanca turned out as well as it did. And he won an Academy Award for Best Directing. Helby Wallace was the guiding vision behind Casablanca. He was the one who really brought everything together and helped shape the vision of Casablanca. The screenplay was by Julius Epstein, Philip Epstein, and Howard Koch. The Epstein twins were known essentially for um, specializing or injecting a lot of humor into their screenplays. So the first portion of Casablanca, let's say the first half to about 2/3, has a lot of gags and funny lines in it. They were taken off Casablanca to work on Frank Capra's Why We Fight. So Howard Koch took over, and he's known more for um, political elements and I believe dramatic elements. So Casablanca appropriately becomes much more dramatic in the latter portion. Brilliant cinematography by Arthur Edison. The look of Casablanca is absolutely beautiful. Um, Great film editing by Owen Marks. He keeps the energy going. He slows down the pace and he speeds the pace up with his editing. We'll take a look at that a little bit later too. Music by Max Steiner. Uh, just everyone did a beautiful job. Everyone here depicted on this, shown on this graphic, at least got an Academy Award nomination. Curtiz won for Best Directing. Helby Wallace won um, the Best Picture Oscar for Warner Brothers. He didn't win it personally, he won it for Warner Brothers. So why do I have a picture of this guy and a presentation about Casablanca? Most of you might know who he is. In case you don't, his name is Theo Epstein. Theo famously took the Chicago Cubs and the Boston Red Sox to the World Series, and both teams won the World Series after generations of drought. So he's a bit of a miracle worker. Um, if you haven't guessed already, why I have a picture of Theo here, it's because Theo is the grandson of Philip Epstein, one of the Epstein twins. And here is Howard Koch. So as Casablanca was being shot, they still didn't have the script finished. They started filming without a finished script. It's one of the reasons Hedy Lamarr turned down the role of Ilsa. They were writing the script as they were shooting. It sounds unbelievable, it sounds insane, but it's true. Let's take a listen to Ingrid Bergman.
As you say, a cult picture. It's a classic in America, and they do it all over and over on television, and people have seen it I don't know how many times.
Sam, I thought I told you never to play.
And it's remarkable because when we did it, we had no faith in it at all because the script was so bad. And it was written day by day. There was nothing clear about it. And we didn't know where we were going. And I didn't know which man I was supposed to really love. So they say, can't you do the love scenes just a little in between? Don't put too much seriousness in it because we really don't know with which man you're going to end up. And I said, but how am I going to do that? And they said, well, you know, play it cool. And then in the end, they said, we're going to shoot it both ways. Oh. And when we came to the end, the first ending was that I went away with my husband in the plane and flew off. And they said, this is it. We don't have to do the second ending because this is just fine. So to the very end, they didn't know what the picture was going to be. And then cutting it all together with all the difficulties and the arguments and the rewrites, here comes this absolutely beautiful movie.
Inside of us, we both know you belong with Victor. You're part of his work, the thing that keeps him going. If that plane leaves the ground and you're not with him, you'll regret it. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon and for the rest of your life.
So they really made a fantastic work of art, yet under insane circumstances. So this is Conor Mcveight, who played Colonel Strasser, Major Strasser. He was a refugee from Nazi Germany. His wife was Jewish. So in 1933, when the Nazis came to power, they left and went to England. And Veidt was very outspoken against the Nazis, both in Germany and in England when they left. They eventually came to the United States, and Veidt made it his personal mission to try to get the United States, to get Hollywood to make films that were critical of Nazi Germany, to increase the support, American support, for entry into World War II. Two other refugees were Madeleine Lebeau and Marcel Dalio. They were married to each other, husband and wife, at the time of Casablanca. And Madeleine Lebeau, her emotion that we see during the singing of Les Marseillaise is real. It's, she's a refugee from France. So she really felt the emotion of this scene. And it just makes it so much more powerful. And the same is true of many of the other extras in that scene. A lot of the extras in the Le Marseillaise scene and in other scenes at Rick's Cafe were refugees from the Nazis. In 1937, Jean Renoir made The Grand Illusion. And as you can see here, it also featured Dalio. Marcel Dalio was in The Grand Illusion as well. It was a war film, a World War I film about French prisoners of war in a German prisoner of war camp. In one scene in the film, the Germans taunt the French prisoners by informing them of a German victory against the French. Soon, as the prisoners are preparing rehearsing for a musical that they've put together, they get word that the French have won a military victory against the German army. And this is what happens after that news is shared. As you watch this, not only listen to the song, but notice how the camera moves through the scene. It's all in one shot, no cuts, no editing.
Marseillaise, please. Nos patries, le jour de gloire est arrivé. Contre nous de la tyrannie, l'étendard sanglant élevé, l'étendard sanglant élevé. Entendez-vous dans ces campagnes, plus ces féroces soldats, qui viennent jusque dans nos bois, égorger nos fils et nos compagnes. Aux armes, citoyens, formez vos bataillons, marchons, marchons, grâce vaincue, à gloire de nos Sillons.
So as I watch that, it's a beautiful scene, but personally, I don't like it nearly as much as the scene it inspired in Casablanca. And clearly it inspired the Le Marseillaise scene in Casablanca. So what I'd like to do is take a look at some of the elements that for me made the Le Marseillaise scene more effective in Casablanca. So as we watch this, I'd like you to notice the lighting. First of all, the image quality is beautiful. Nice, clear, clean cinematography. Great lighting, dramatic lighting. Humphrey Bogart's face is well lit. Part of his face is in shadow. He has what's called a kicker light back here, highlighting his hair to separate him from the background. Dramatic shadows in the background. Compositionally, Humphrey Bogart is on the left. Victor Laszlo is on the right. So compositionally, in terms of blocking, the left is the position of dominance. It's the dominant or primary position. Usually it's for the person who is in control or the person with whom we're supposed to sympathize more. The right is the secondary or inferior position. It's usually for a person who is subordinate and less sympathetic. This is contextual. It varies according to the situation, and it can be quite fluid. But often, if you can notice it. So hopefully you remember what I said about left and right, and notice the lighting. Very dramatic lighting, very skillfully done. So I'm going to play this silent so you can focus on the visuals. And again, here are the highlights in Bogart's hair to separate him from the background. The dialogue is indicating conflict between these two characters. So now the German officers are beginning to sing their military song here. So They're full frame here. They're clearly visually dominant in the shot. And they've even taken over Sam's piano. Now Rick enters the frame. Rick is still on the left. He's closer to the camera, which means that we're with Rick. The officers are on the right, far away and below Rick. They are separated in this little cubbyhole from everyone else. So it's them against everyone else. These pillars separate them. This is almost like a gate, uh, uh, almost like a castle gate. These bars here also partition them away from everyone else. And aside, these things like touches like these light fixtures in Rick's take a simple space and make it this classic space that we've all come to know. There's Renault passing through, watching Rick. His passing through is part of the energy of this sequence. He passes through, there's motion, there's constant motion either of people or the camera cutting. And there again, the dominance of the German officers. The camera pans, it moves, that keeps the energy going. There's Renault, we get information from his face of amusement. Victor Laszlo comes out. Now Victor Laszlo is on the left. Victor Laszlo is on the left because now he's about to be in control. He's above Humphrey Bogart. At the moment, they're separated from the action. That's about to change. Again, still wonderful dramatic lighting. Laszlo moves to take action. In Casablanca, clearly the German officers represent Germany. Madeline represents the French people, the people of France. Here she is at the table with this German officer, just like the Germans occupied France. They're separated by this lamp because of the emotional separation. Clearly, she's not happy to be there. Victor Laszlo represents the resistance against the Nazis, and Rick is symbolic of a United States that has yet to enter the war and is reluctant to. Again, motion. Victor Laszlo moves through the frame. Ilsa sees her husband going into action into a situation that might not be that safe. The camera moves in on her, keeping the energy going, and we move in closer to her emotions. The background is in soft focus, so we can focus completely on Ilsa. Her face is beautifully and softly lit, again with the highlights in her hair to make her stand out from the background. The camera moves as Victor Laszlo approaches us, keeping the energy going. Laszlo is on the right because he is not in control of the band. He instructs them to play Les Marseillaise. They look to their boss. This is a powerful moment in this scene. He gives them permission. Rick gives them permission to be defiant against the German army, against the German officers. This is Rick leaving his position of neutrality. He is taking a side here. The camera is close to Humphrey Bogart to draw our attention to this moment. And again, Rick is in sharp focus and the background is in out of focus. So we can focus on Rick. The refugees stand in response to Victor Laszlo's call to action, to Le Marseillaise. The Germans are defiant. They're close to the camera because they're in our face. The camera is down low, looking up at them, not because they're heroic, but because of their dominance. The French, the refugees, remain defiant. The German officers give up. They turn tail. They're losing this battle. Everyone is standing together in unity. Now, here she is in close-up. We have her, Madeline, in close-up, the closest we've gotten to anyone else in the film. We see the tears in her eyes, soft focus in the background to draw us, to keep our attention on her. We are to empathize with her. She sells this scene. Those tears are real. Ilsa is starting to realize the power and character of her husband, possibly more than before. She's more brightly lit than anything else in the frame. Soft focus in the background. So our attention will be completely on her and with the partition behind her. This is the peak of the power of Victor Laszlo. He's above us, we're slightly below, looking up at him. Huge in the frame, soft focus in the background. Scar on his face to show that he's been battling. Extreme close-up on Ingrid Bergman with this look of adoration in her eyes, and she's clearly teared up. We feel their emotions. Everyone unified behind Victor Laszlo. Passion. And then the shout of Vive la France. So that is what I like to do with films, is take a close look at what it is that makes them as effective as they are. Now, one thing we'll do is take a look at the scene together with sound.
Are you enough of a businessman to appreciate an offer of 100,000 francs?
I appreciate it, but I don't accept it.
I'll raise it to 200,000.
My friend, you could make it 1,000,000 francs or 3. My answer would still be the same.
There must be some reason why you won't let me have them.
There is. I suggest that you ask your wife.
I beg your pardon?
I said, ask your wife.
My wife?
Yes.
Vaterland must truly shine. Follow the hope, let the tree, the ship is running after rain. The fresh angels cry, must be loud, loud and great. Let the sound of
And that's Le Marseillaise. So that's it for my presentation. But I hope what you'll do is, if you haven't seen Casablanca in a while, take another look at it and hopefully consider some of the things I've shared today.
Thank you, Franklin, very, very much. Thank you. This is my one question for you. What is your favorite film?
My favorite film, good question. I always have a hard time with that because I like so many different kinds of films. So I almost have to choose them between genre, between a era. But if I had to pick one offhand, it might be Casablanca. It might be Casablanca. But
Okay.
I mean, I have a bunch of favorites.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you, Diane Moses. Because I don't want to forget this, we talked about it beforehand. I want to make sure that you let the people in the audience know if they loved your presentation and want to take a class from you. You mentioned, or Diane mentioned, that you teach at Triton College. Can you just tell us briefly what type of classes you teach and, you know, how people can find out more information?
Yes, I teach American classics, which is my favorite. I teach American classics, and we tend to focus on films like Casablanca. And I essentially go from the 1930s through the 1950s, but I also branch out into subsequent decades, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, but primarily that era. And I also teach a class that rotates between documentaries, foreign films, and classic American television.
So if they go to Triton College's website, they can find your classes. And you said the next session starts in a couple weeks, do you think?
Probably in maybe about, don't quote me on this, about 4 or 5 weeks.
Okay, great.
The summer session. Check with the continuing education department at Triton.
That's
Yeah.
great. So that is my plug for Triton College and for your classes. Now, the questions have just begun to roll in. So here we go.
And just a quick warning, I'm not a trivia guy, so try not to throw too much trivia at me.
Well, that's fine. You know what you can say? Consult Dr. Google if you don't know the answer,
There
okay?
you go.
Okay.
Google is your friend.
Yes, so let's see if you know. Karen C, if you can unmute, you've got a question or two, you've got a few questions.
Yeah, I had a couple. Well, the one was, were other actors considered to play the role of Rick? And then I don't know if you want to answer and I'll ask the other one.
Okay. To my knowledge, Humphrey Bogart was really Hal B. Wallace's pick to play Rick. Joan Allison, one of the writers of Everybody Comes to Rick's, envisioned Clark Gable as Rick, which could have possibly worked.
Yeah, he's my guy.
but to my knowledge, it was always Wallace's uh, idea to have Bogart.
All right, Karen, next.
Oh, yeah, the other, so it's because it sounds like it was a little chaotic. Do you know how long it took to,
Yes, how long it took to shoot the film?
Oh, let's see. I'll take a quick look. So I know they began filming, I believe they began filming in June of 1942.
I feel like during that time, film shoots were a lot shorter than they are now.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of films now use a bunch of special effects.
Yeah.
Which adds a lot of time to production.
Mm-hmm.
I'm having a slow connection speed here.
That's okay. That's okay. It's okay for you to say I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Came from a play. So much of if the film took place at Rick's cafe or around the cafe, do you know how many different locations they actually used?
As far as I've read, I think just the cafe, but I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, I think she means because was it all on a soundstage or did they do any exterior shots? Like that plane, was that an exterior shot?
They went to France. They showed them in France and on the airfield at the end, just things like that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think most of that, if not all of that, was studio stuff.
Yeah, that was pretend.
Yeah, and some of the planes were actually miniatures.
Yeah, and I can imagine, thank you, Karen. I can imagine filming in France in 1942 might have been kind of tough. With what was going on in the world at the time. So I'm sure they did a lot of fantasy.
Yeah, because they didn't really need to go to France. They, I think they had some exterior stuff like with the Arc of Triumph, L'Arc de Triomphe. But that was like, stock footage.
Yeah, yeah.
But as far as the cafe and the scene in Paris, that's stuff that you can do on a soundstage really easily.
Awesome. Bonnie.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, thanks for having this. It was great. I guess my question is a little bit related to, I think Diane asked you about your favorite film. I was wondering if you have any favorite director or favorite actor, and have you ever done a program or something like this for a group on Orson Welles?
Okay, well, last question first. No, I haven't. I haven't done anything with Orson Welles yet. I'm thinking about doing one or two of his films before the end of the year. But my favorite director, not to be too cliche, but it's probably Alfred Hitchcock.
Okay, thank you.
Not as a person, but as a director.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Bonnie. I'm just going to ask this question for Rosamund. She says, has this film been colorized?
I try not to think about that. So that's my answer.
Oh, so I'm going to do a quick one.
Don't bother.
How many days would you stay in bed if this film was remade?
How many days would I stay in bed?
Yeah, I have a hard time with movie remakes.
Yeah, boy, they did a TV series with David Soul as Rick. Yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah.
I mean, no offense to David Soul, but that is not a good casting.
No.
Okay.
No, and there was talk about, are you sitting down? It looks like you are.
Yes.
There was talk of doing a remake with Ashton Kutcher and Madonna.
Oh, that would almost be worth seeing just for the laugh factor. Okay, here's a question. Joyce Porter is coming on. Joyce?
I'm wondering what the reaction was at the time. Did people realize at the time this was a great movie, or was it only with the passage of time that they felt that way?
I don't really know what the audience reaction was. I know that it did very well with the Academy Awards. So if that's any indication,
That's
um,
that's a good gauge,
yeah.
especially when until recently it's been popularity votes. So that's a good one. Jonathan Kelly. All right, I'm going to ask his question. We kind of talked about this a little bit. So the U.S. had entered the war by December of 1941, and if Casablanca was filmed in June 1942, was the purpose of the film to boost morale in Europe, or do you know what I mean? Because the play had already been written, or the book, what it was sourced from had already been written. Or do you think it was just your typical moneymaker?
Oh, well, okay. So part of it is that, as you already mentioned, the play was written in 1940
40, okay.
before we entered the war. So, I mean, it wasn't purely a propaganda piece, but clearly it had a propaganda value for, for morale, for ongoing support for the war. But the story, I mean, the story itself was written
Yeah.
before Pearl Harbor.
Okay, I am gonna make and I can't believe I'm saying this. I did not watch the Oscars last night. We taped it and I might watch it, but it just seems like a weird year to watch. I've watched them. I mean, they're my Super Bowl, as they are for many other people. Did you, Agatha has a question. Agatha?
Hi there. I just loved it. I don't know if you read my chat, but I just thought I will look at Casablanca in a new light now. When
I'm
I
glad.
I actually saved it because it was on something, and I think I'm going to watch it tonight. But anyway, I did watch some of the Oscars last night, and I was just wondering if you watched it or not, and what you thought of No Man Land winning the Best Picture. And I just said, or is it too early to comment on that?
Thanks, Agatha.
Okay, so and help me if I don't answer the question completely, but as far as Nomadland goes, I thought it was well done. Um, Best Picture kind of surprised me. I love Frances McDormand, but she's just a fantastic actress, one of my favorites.
Yeah.
But as far as Nomadland, for me, I really wanted to see a documentary version of it.
That's what I said.
Okay.
I said
Yeah.
so many times people make movies, and I'm like, wouldn't this have just been better as a documentary?
Yeah. I mean, I really feel that way. I mean, it was like a narrative film pretending to be a documentary, pretending, that just
Yeah, and I
so
wonder if sometimes we're totally getting off topic, so we're gonna nip this. But I think sometimes they think, well, if we make a documentary, not as many people will see it. And we want the story to be told. So let's turn it into a feature film. And then, yeah. But she's good in everything she does.
she is. She deserves. I told a friend of mine she deserves more Oscars than she has. She's just a great actress.
Oh, she has more. She has a few.
But
She's doing okay.
She needs more.
Oh, I think if you asked her, she'd say she's doing okay. Okay, here is Gil. Hi, Gil.
I have another confession to make. I not only didn't watch the Oscars, hardly ever do, but I have never actually seen Casablanca.
That's okay.
I have never seen it. I am now inspired to do so. So thank you for that.
Oh, I'm glad. That's fantastic.
My question for you is that given all the new technologies and special effects in film and cinematography, in your opinion, has filmmaking improved or declined over the ages?
Oh.
That depends. That depends. I can easily be biased for films from the 30s, 40s, but it just depends on the film. It just depends on the film. Uh, One work I've been seeing the praises of lately is The Queen's Gambit. I love The Queen's Gambit.
I'm watching that too.
I think it's fantastic. I watched it in two sittings. I binged it in 2 days. Um, it just depends on the filmmaker. There were a lot of, one of the things we forget is that there were a lot of bad films in the 30s, 40s, and 50s.
I was just, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of action films that had absolutely no character development, and it was just like there was a lot of war movies and a lot of westerns that had no true purpose other than entertainment value.
Yeah. And even dramas, romances, film noirs, there are a lot of them that you just can't make it through.
Yeah.
They have terrible production values,
Yeah.
terrible stories. So what we tend to look at in hindsight is the good stuff. And so if we just looked at the good stuff from today, it would paint a different picture.
Yeah.
That said, I mean, I do think there is a heavy reliance on special effects. But not all films are like that.
Well,
I think television has improved quite a bit, with the streaming services and even commercial television.
Oh yeah, some television series now have, and I'm going to say production value, but I don't mean special effects. I mean like the actual work they put into the casting and the directing and the writing is higher than a movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I do call that the SNL effect, where I always hear people saying, "Oh, Saturday Night Live isn't as good as it used to be."
Mm-hmm.
And everybody says that. Every generation says that. I'm like, well, then when was it ever good? If it's never as good as it was, when was it ever good? And I think it's easy to look backwards and say stuff isn't as good now as it used to be.
Yeah.
But were they critical of it back then too?
And SNL had some seasons that were just horrible back in the 70s and 80s.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they have some stuff now that's horrible. And I think that's kind of how films are too. All right, I'm looking for more questions.
And by the way, on Casablanca, it wasn't a blockbuster when it came out, but it's made up for it since then. It did get good reviews. It got consistently good reviews, which is good to know.
I'm going to ask this one just because we're getting close to the end of the program. Jonathan wants to know, have you written any books or articles on film? Is there anything we can look you up for?
I haven't written any books. I've written articles years ago, but gosh, I don't know where you could even find those. And by the way, just to be clear, if it hasn't been clear already, my expertise is not in trivia. I know some stuff, but I'm not the trivia person who just like rattles this stuff off. My strong suit is really observation and analysis. I pay attention to the film, I see what's there, and then I interpret it. I love the language of film. The use of close-ups, pans, tilts, zooms, lighting, the use of music. It's the art of film. And once you become consciously aware of it, you get so much more out of it.
Well, there's a challenge for everyone as we enter the second half of the year, or at least the second quarter of the year, is to start looking at films critically and noticing stuff like that, because there's a whole world of crew that spends a lot of time working on that stuff for you. But also, though, it's kind of cool that you don't notice it because it means they're doing it right.
That's right. I tell people, watch a film you like, yet you enjoy twice. just watch it the first time to get the story, because that's what we notice the
Mhm.
first time we watch. Then watch it again to see the artistry. And Gil, I'm like you, I don't generally watch the Academy Awards either.
Well, I do. I love them. But this year, I don't know. It's been a weird year. All right, Franklin, is there any last words, although what you just said was great, is there any last words you want to give the audience before we close this?
Just basically that, watch things closely, because you'll get a better idea of what they're saying, what the intent is, what the actual story is. And look at the stuff that's hanging on the walls, the pictures, the furniture, the drawings. You're going to see a lot.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. What a great program. We have 2 more programs this season, and that is the next 2 Mondays. If you want to see what we are cooking up, go to our website, www.19thcentury.org, and you can register right on the homepage. There's links. And if you want to help us continue to put on amazing programs like this, you can also go to our website, www.19thcentury.org, and right on the homepage, there's a big old button called Donate Here, and you can donate there. Well, for everyone at the 19th Century Charitable Association, for Franklin and Diane, I want to wish you a wonderful day, and thank you as always for participating. Bye-bye.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.